What's going on, my eaters? It's your boy, Chef Drew, aka Chef, aka Big Drew. And y'all, this week we are reading again. If some of y'all remember earlier on in the channel, I took a moment and went through a book, this book, How I Built This, Guy Raz. As I was sitting there thinking about this week's video, I was like, yo, there were so many nuggets in that book. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface. So this week I busted back out, you know, and it's always a good refresher to me. This book is kind of a reference book to me at this point. It's always a good refresher to me to see different people's perspectives and experiences and use them to help me along my journey in this walk of entrepreneurship and even in life sometimes. So How I Built This, Guy Raz. Every entrepreneur, grassroots entrepreneur should have this book, in my opinion. Listen to his podcast. Great resource and information. Before we get into this book again, please like, subscribe, do all the things to help us continue to bring you this great content each and every week. Let's go. All right, y'all, so no joke, this is kind of wild. I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go this week as we read what Guy had to say. And so I literally just opened the book. And when I opened the book, just like this, the page it landed on, chapter 23, it says, Know Thyself. Listen, y'all, one of my biggest convictions in life at this point, personally and in business, where I make sure always am self-reflecting, always utilizing safe people resources to hold myself accountable and to hold me accountable in business and how I deal with others as well. So I just wanted to pick out a few things out of the chapter that stood out to me, share my insights and perspectives on them with you. And hopefully at the end of the day, as always, this information, this insight will help you on your journey. Guy writes, when growth begins to accelerate, it's even more critical to know who you are as a founder and who you are as a company. That understanding helps point you in the right direction when you have opportunities to pursue lots of different things. Y'all, in entrepreneurship, everybody, especially in grassroots entrepreneurship, everybody knows what it is to have a million pots on the fire. When you have to be vigilant in task management, in time management, in communication, when growth begins to accelerate, when your business is taking off, and those pots are stacking up on the fire, it's even more critical to know who you are as a founder and who you are as a company. The knowledge of you, who you are as an individual, the knowledge of what your business is and who your business serves. Knowing that on a guttural level will always help steer the ship. That's what he's saying. Knowledge of those things, that understanding helps point you in the right direction when you have opportunities to pursue lots of different things. When you look back one day or in one moment and you see all the pots on the fire that you got to deal with and you're trying to delegate through and so on and so forth, the knowing, what Guy is saying, and as I understand it, is the knowing and the conviction of who you are, who your business is. At the end of the day, those are the things keep you navigated properly and keep you going towards the things that are for you, the things that are for the betterment of your business and yourself. As this chapter progresses, Guy starts telling the story of Andy Dunn, a CEO. I think the company is Bonobos. Later in the chapter, he says, speaking of Andy, he also struggled with direct conflict and confrontation. I valued harmony over the difficult conversations until the situation became really difficult, he said. And then I'd take it on. So Andy is saying he was in his business and there was a situation where he was having issues And for him, he struggled with conflict and confrontation. And so what he did was he would just avoid the conflict until he couldn't avoid it anymore, essentially. And ultimately, he learned horribly that that is not productive and it's not what you should do as a person, and definitely not in business. After he realized that there was conflict and then he took it on when he had to, he said, combined with the normal stress and insecurity that come with running a successful startup, one that wasn't even his idea to begin with, these personal issues started to steer Andy towards poor decisions, including fighting with his co-founder in front of the team, which exacerbated the problems the company already had with identity. First, Guy says it's very important to know who you are and who your business is and what you represent and all of that. Then the next thing that stood out for me in this chapter is conflict and confrontation. Y'all, listen, I'm the type of individual, I have no problem. I don't like to, it's not my natural bent. However, I have no problem having the hard conversation. As I've seen in my own life and my own work, when you avoid the hard conversations and the conflict that potentially can come with them, when you avoid those things in business and in life, without a shadow of a doubt, things always go bad. We must, especially as entrepreneurs, we must be able to have the hard conversations. We must be able to deal with conflict. Open and honest communication is paramount to any successful relationship and any successful business. As Andy says in this book and in this chapter, and as he recounts his experiences, the more he avoided, all that did was exacerbate the problems that already existed in the business. He continued to avoid, as you read on in the chapter, and the problems that already existed that were being exacerbated because of the avoidance just became worse and worse and worse. So y'all, know yourself. Have your identity solid in your business. And do not be afraid to have the hard conversation. Ultimately, a few moments of uncomfortability will save you a whole bunch of time, stress, all of that. So please, just have the hard conversation. We read on. Andy was recounting of his business, and he says the engineer's message was a wake-up call. Andy said, this isn't consulting or private equity where people are motivated by fear. This is a startup where people are motivated by joy. It's about creating something versus making sure that you're working hard enough to get to the next rung. He was talking to one of his engineers who had chosen to move on from him. And he pretty much said, Andy, listen, you're trying to serve two masters. You're trying to serve your office in the West Coast that wants to go one way and your office on the East Coast that wants the company to be another way. And that chasm was causing strife in the business. And that is when Andy said through that conversation, he had a wake-up call. He had to ask himself, after he saw where his business was in this instance, he had to really, really ask himself, am I trying to have a business where I'm serving and motivated by joy? Or am I trying to have a business where my team and my staff is motivated by fear? Andy realized after this conversation with his engineer that he had lost focus, that originally he wanted to have a business where the primary motivation for him and his team would be to be working from a place of joy. But because he was not clear on his identity in business, because he would not have the hard conversation, he started losing people, he started losing his business. because he started aligning with the things that were not important to his core values. He started aligning with the wrong motivations. So y'all, as you're navigating your entrepreneurial walk, please, 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 always keep your motivations first and foremost, and let those also be the guide to what you do on your day-to-day. Let those be the guide to how you carry yourself in business, because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna bring you longevity. At the end of the day, what helped him navigate the rough waters, the rough season, was his ability to look in the mirror, reflect, and adjust accordingly in his day-to-day actions. Y'all, it takes a lot to be humble. It takes a lot to do what I'm saying. It takes a lot to really humble yourself to the point where you can look in the mirror and say, something's not working, or I messed up. You have to be able to get to that place, though, to be a mature, productive person or business owner. Raj finishes this chapter by saying, and speaking of Andy again, thankfully, Andy Dunn understands that too. And he has finally been able to experience the power of becoming more of the things that are authentically him. I want to read that again, y'all. He has finally been able to experience the power of becoming more of the things that are authentically him. Y'all, I say we want to empower you every week. That just summed up this week's episode. That just summed up this chapter in this book, Knowing Thyself. Through knowing yourself, through knowing your business, through knowing what way, where you want to go and how to get there and with who. By knowing that, by being clear in it, by believing in it, by setting up the accountability in your life to make sure it stays, by always self-reflecting, you will experience the power of becoming more of the things that are authentically him, authentically you. By knowing yourself, being clear with yourself, communicating properly with yourself, with your team, with your partners, you will be able, ultimately, what it does for you, for your business, for your life, is it empowers you, again, to become more of the thing that is most authentically you, that is most authentically your business. Knowing yourself should ultimately, I feel like, be a guiding light on this roadmap, on this road to becoming the entrepreneur and business owner and person you want to be. Guys, that's all I got for you today. Again, How I Built This, Guy Raz, excellent entrepreneurial resource. If you have not read it, if you have read it, read it from cover to cover, take notes. Our goal here is to always empower you, excite you, educate you into the business and the life that you want for yourself. Y'all, until next time, thank you so much. Please remember, go check out our homeboys on Last Night's Coffee with Chuck and John. That podcast is available on all streaming platforms. They're also on YouTube. Until next time, y'all, we are gone.